Everybody, today I'm going to tackle the age-old question: what is better, DeWalt or Ryobi? So my name is Sean. I am from Charleston Crafted in Charleston, South Carolina, and I am a DIY home renovator and woodworker. So I am a self-taught woodworker, and I have taught myself how to do all sorts of woodworking projects. I started from scratch on my screen porch using a handsaw and a no-name drill, way below the quality of these, that I was given for free. And that thing had no power to it whatsoever. And I have worked my way up to having a full-on wood shop under my house. So to me, I've used a lot of different tool brands over the years. Like I said, I started with like a no-name brand. I've used Porter cable tool drills. I've used DeWalt drills, Ryobi drills. I've used all sorts of different brands of power tools and non-power tools. And there's a lot of good things and a lot of bad things about all sorts of brands. So I do just want to start off by saying, in this comparison, I have a full comparison written up in a blog on my site that I link to in the description of this video. So if you're interested in seeing full details on this, you can read all my thoughts on it there. But overall, I want to go into this description of what's better between DeWalt and Ryobi by saying I truly believe that the difference in a woodworking project is not the tools, it's the user. And in my opinion, a good woodworker can use any tool, any brand tool, to make a good project. And if you think that a tool is what is holding you back, like I said, it's not, because I started in my condo working on a screen porch with a drill that had the battery didn't work, the drill bits were always breaking off, it had no power to it, and I was still able to make wonderful projects over the years. And now every year I gain more tools, I gain more skills, and I have done this over and over and over again. And I think it's very important to remember that the tool is not what makes the project. The user is what makes the project. So when you're doing your woodworking projects, I think it's always important to use whatever tool makes you feel most comfortable, or whatever tool you have access to. If you do not have the finances at the moment to go and upgrade all of your tools to a nice fancier brand, then use what you have. If somebody is offering you a certain brand tool to use to get started, take it. It's not about just you don't turn down a tool because it's a Porter cable brand or a Hitachi or a Ryobi or whatever. Like, if somebody is giving you tools, it's very, very important to just use it. And it's a great place to start, especially if you're getting started in woodworking. You need to learn what you like and what you don't like about tool brands. So Dark Wolf, what brand would you recommend? Well, that's exactly what we're here to talk about. So there's a lot of different brands, but today I'm breaking down the differences between DeWalt and Ryobi. So I have here the standard DeWalt and Ryobi drill and driver combo sets. So Ryobi is a brand that you can only get from Ryobi or from Home Depot. And this is a lower cost brand to get into. So if you are newer into woodworking and you want to start off a little bit less expensive, Ryobi is a great option for getting into it. This is the standard drill driver combo set from DeWalt, and this is available at pretty much anywhere. This is available at Lowe's, Home Depot, Menards, any of those types of things. We have Lowe's and Home Depot here in Charleston. That's primarily what I'm going to be focused on discussing in general, but you can get any of these online as well. I've linked to these in the description of this video as well, so you can check out these combos. Like I said, you can only get the Ryobi ones at Home Depot, but you can get the DeWalt at both. And I also want to stress out too, before we show some of the actual specifics here, sometimes tool brands can be better at hand tools and can be better at bigger power tools. And I'm going to show you some of the ones I have and prove to you that I use both. So I think I will now get into exactly what's different, but like I said, when it comes to what I would recommend, all right? So I honestly used Ryobi for a very, very long time. I still do. If you take a look behind me, I got a lot of Ryobi tools. And another thing to keep in mind is when you start out a set, I think it's important to choose one and kind of stick with that, because with all of these, there's a battery pack. So Ryobi has this battery with this pole here, and this fits into the nailer, the circular saw, the jigsaw, the sander, my router, every single piece. This is I'll just start right here. One of the differences between Ryobi and DeWalt, one thing that I like is this pole system. It just clicks in real easily. You can see right here, let me put this back here and listen, you can do it one-handed, okay? So it's got that pole system, whereas DeWalt has a sliding. So you have to squeeze this down and slide this in and out. So listen here, that's one difference between these. It's two different ones. You cannot do the DeWalt one-handed, and sometimes that actually makes a difference. If you're trying to hold something up with one hand, if you're working in your house, you're trying to hold something up with one hand, and you got to switch tools, and you know, you can maybe pop this out with one hand, you can kind of get this out, but you can't get that one back in. Whereas, watch this, with the Ryobi, this is one thing I like, right? I'm one-handed. If I need to switch, I can always pop that out. I can grab the next tool that I need, clip that in one-handed. So that is an advantage, in my opinion, to that Ryobi battery system. But whichever one you choose, all the brands have a whole line of tools that are very important. The batteries only work with that brand. So it's very important to kind of, in my opinion, have one. So here's the difference. Again, so this is Ryobi and this is a DeWalt battery. There's a lot. Well, Victor, you can do DeWalt one-handed. Congratulations. Everybody throw some stars in the chat for Victor. I cannot. I mean, it's not exactly easy. Let's see. Let's see how we can get this one-handed. We can get that on there, but it's not clipped in, obviously. Okay, I can get it on there, and I guess you can do this. You can do that, but that is a lot more difficult than just that. So that's just one thing to me. You know, that's just one difference to me. So this is also the difference. Both of these have a drill and a driver combo, okay? So usually, the big difference, the main difference between these two types of tools is that you don't use a driver when actually drilling a hole into something. This is for putting in screws or bolts, and this is what you use a driver for, whereas a drill can technically do both. So this is like a combination tool. You use this to actually drill holes, and then you can also put in just a regular Phillips head bit or whatever bit you need to actually drill something into drive a screw into what you're going for. Hey Kyle, what's up? You're a yellow guy. That's fine. Whatever, to each their own. But I'm showing the difference here because I sometimes think that DeWalt and Ryobi, mainly people give Ryobi a bad rap, and I think that it's a lot of people that have never used Ryobi. A lot of people say, you'd never see Ryobi on a job site. Okay, that's fine. People say Ryobi's crap. They've never even used it before. People say DeWalt might be the best. Oh, it's tough, man. Well, again, as I said before, I think the user is what makes a furniture project or does a job, and it's not necessarily the tool itself. So here's a couple more differences. All right, so we're gonna start with these drivers here. Is a drill better to screw in screws? I personally, it goes a little bit quicker, and it gives that little force. So basically what an impact drill is it has a little bit of a vibration as it's pushing forward, that it's driving that screw into place. That's the main difference, whereas a drill just twists. It just screws it in, you put the effort in, and it just kind of drives in. A driver has a little bit of a microscopic hammer to it in there, and it's driving that in. So it helps a little bit, especially with longer screws, or if you're driving like big bolts or something like that. That's the main difference between screwing in screws. Kyle says he uses his Ryobi for yard work stuff. Excellent. I have a full Ryobi set. That is a different kind of battery. Well, actually, they do make some yard tools that go on, Ryobi makes different yard tools that go on this 18-volt battery here. They do have these that go on this, but let me here's the main difference. This is the battery pack that I use for most of my outdoor tools. But I have the expanded system, which is basically like a shaft that has a trigger on it, and then you can attach a weeder, a weed whacker, an edger, what else? I mean, you can trimmer, blower, all sorts of things on there. But that's the difference in those types of batteries. But all right, so let's get into the differences directly between a couple of some of these tools. Yeah, hey, Dark Wolf, I'm gonna keep explaining lots more too, but that's just the main difference between a drill and a driver overall. So here's the Ryobi driver and the DeWalt driver. So I wanna show you one thing, difference in the size. So these are both, as you can see, significantly smaller than their drill counterparts, right? But see, as you can see, and they are also lighter. So that's one thing I like about this, especially like you said when I was answering about what I like for drilling screws. Well, a lot of times, especially if you are in like a tight spot, you need something smaller and lighter. If you're reaching around and trying to get up into something, this might be a better option for you if you're trying to get into a tight spot. These are also, both have lights on them, so you can see where you're going, whereas these, only the DeWalt one does. Ryobi might have a light on it now. I'm not really sure as it's gotten older. I will get back into that, Kyle, on the palm router in just a second. Remind me, if you wouldn't mind, Kyle, shoot me a reminder here in a couple minutes and we can talk about that palm router and the difference there. And if anybody has any specific questions, please throw them in here. There's lots of questions and comments coming in, and I appreciate that, and I will try to get back to all those and touch on all of those. I'm gonna throw a blatant plug out there. If you, I've never tried these super thanks things before. People keep telling me to try them, but if you really want to make sure I see your question, I'd love any support that I can get there. But so again, here's the difference. All right, so on this, the difference between the driver, the DeWalt is much smaller and lighter than the Ryobi, and I really like that. Again, I like having that light weight to it. Listen to these. Here's the DeWalt driver, and here's the Ryobi. So you make your own mind up. I think the DeWalt sounds a little bit stronger, but they both work pretty much the same. Here is the sound difference. Again, here's the size difference actually. Size difference between the Ryobi and the DeWalt. So again, the Ryobi is a little bit bigger than the DeWalt. I like that. It's a little bit lighter too than this one. Here's the sound difference. The DeWalt motor just kind of sounds a little bit stronger, a little bit more fine-tuned. If you're buying tools, also I do suggest going with a brushless option if you're going to start now. Brushless supposedly makes the motor run better. There's some people would say, I don't know how much it really changes, but supposedly it makes everything run better and last longer on that. But hey, all right, so I'm gonna show you guys a test here. Now, this is a main difference that I wanna talk about, all right? So here, we got some boards. So we got a 3/4 inch thick board and that's an angled cut, but an 1.5 inch thick board here. So this is two different thicknesses of wood. This is a standard 1x4 and a standard 2x4. So this could be a main difference for you depending on what you like to do and need to do. So to me, I've always noticed a difference between the DeWalt and the Ryobi depending on two things: the thickness of the wood and also the thickness of the drill bit. So these are my drill bits that I use right here. So if you take, this is a 3/16 inch drill bit, right? All right, so we're gonna throw this bit into the Ryobi, which you just click into place. All right, we're gonna drill that in. No issue, no issue, okay. Now we're gonna throw that into the DeWalt here. Again, no issue there, all right? They both go through and no real problems there, right? Okay, so here that is, again, with that smaller drill bit, but on thicker wood. So we're gonna do this DeWalt right here. Goes through really easy. No issue there, okay? Now, we are going to do the Ryobi, all right? Try this out. Again, not too bad. So the difference is usually in the thickness of the drill bit. Now I want to show you this difference here. This one, it doesn't technically always happen, so we are going to see exactly what happens on this live test here. But this is a 1/2 inch drill bit right here. We're gonna throw that into both of these, and I wanna show you how these look, all right? So this is typically where I see the biggest difference between these drills. So this is the 1/2 inch with a Ryobi into a 2x4. And there it is. See, my finger is still on here, and it locks up almost all the time, okay? I don't like that. That's not good. Let's see if it happens on the 3/4 inch wood. Not as bad, but it did jump through there. So it gets through that all right, but if you're trying to drill into that 1/2 inch wood, or with that 1/2 inch drill bit into the thicker wood, I don't like the Ryobi as much. It does not seem to have the right amount of power for that. I've always felt that way. It often gets jammed up and gives me that kickback. So now we're gonna try the DeWalt one. And it went right through with no issue. Again, no issue whatsoever. So I like the DeWalt. As I said in that sound test, that's why I gave you that sound test, that motor does seem to run better than the Ryobi one, which is not huge for like most day-to-day activities, but when you were doing something like this, there you go again. It gets all jammed up, and I do not like that about this Ryobi. I also want to show you the difference here. So these two right here, this one and this one were the two I drilled with the Ryobi. This one and this one are the two that I drilled with the DeWalt. So look at that. Look at the difference between the holes, especially this one. This DeWalt hole, clean, no problem. This DeWalt hole, a little bit of tear out. This is obviously just like a test. You should put something behind your board. If you don't want any tear out, you should have a secondary board there, but just like, look at this. Like, these are the ones that got all jammed up, and I do not like that. So the main difference to me between the DeWalt and Ryobi drills are that the Ryobi one, I do not feel can handle that larger drill bit size or for going into thicker wood. So if you do a lot of that kind of stuff, the DeWalt is the way to go. So I want to grab a couple of screws here to do the driver test, but let me talk about this palm router for Kyle just for a hot second. This is not the topic of the video, but I'm just going to put it here while I reach over into my workshop table. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to reach into my cabinet and grab some screws. But this is the palm router right here. So the palm router, to me, works really well, and I love to run this around all of my tool, like tables and stuff, just to give it like a smoother edge. You can either do a nice camphor bit or a roundover bit, something like that. This works really well for just doing like small edges and stuff like that. I actually have a DeWalt router attached to my router table, which I'm going to show you a couple of those other tools here in a few seconds. Like I said, there's a big difference to me between hand power tools and then like bigger tools, like a miter saw, table saw, scroll saw, those kinds of things. And to me, the Ryobi stuff, mostly for most uses, just as good in my opinion as the DeWalt. Not for those thick drill bits into thick wood. I don't like those as much, but overall, I feel like Ryobi is just as fine, especially for a novice or a like, you know, intermittent woodworker, somebody that does work on their house. But the palm router, I like it. It works really well. It is very strong. I don't have any router bits in there right now, but I'll throw this in there and just let you listen to it. So this is, in my opinion, a good tool. It works really well. It runs very smooth, very clean. I don't have any issues with this palm router. I do want to take a second real quick to show you driving some screws. So of course I grabbed some that have the wrong drill bit. I don't have that on me either, but here we go. Luckily I have everything organized in my shop. If you want any sort of workshop organization, definitely hit me up on learning about that. So this is a 2.5 inch long screw, and we're gonna put this to the test with these drivers. Another difference between these drivers and these drills. So you saw when I did both of these, you have to put this in, you have to tighten up the chuck to the right size. You gotta put this in and then tighten it, whether it's a drill bit or a bit, but with drivers, you can just click it in and it holds itself in there. So I'm gonna drill this 2.5 inch long screw here into this 2x4. So no real issue there. That is into my workbench there. Got that one in there. Again, we're gonna do another one here. Just a little test. Get it started. Okay, we got that in there. Now we're going to pop that out and we're going to throw this into the Ryobi, which also has the same locking mechanism there. And we're gonna throw this one in. So these actually both work about the same, in my opinion, on getting these long screws into thicker wood. I wish I could pull up my whole workbench right now. The Ryobi actually has a better get up on that. Like it starts it better, but then I think the DeWalt might have a better like long go. So what's the difference? What do they call it in racing? There's what was it in Mario Kart? Toad had better acceleration, but Bowser had better top speed. So like the Ryobi I think has a little bit better get up and acceleration on driving screws in, whereas the DeWalt has better top end speed, better torque long term. Let's see about getting these out here. So no issue there. And so you hear that noise, and I didn't talk about that. So that noise is another big difference between the drill and the driver. So what you're hearing with that is that hammer action that I told you about. So that hammer action, that brrr, is this little like microscopic hammering that's going on inside of here that is driving that screw into the wood and where it needs to go. Whereas, so I'll show you the difference here. All right, let's listen to that again. It doesn't matter which one. All right, so that's that hammer action, right? So now we're gonna take this out and we're going to throw this bit into the drill, and this will still work, but it's harder to get started, but you're not gonna hear that sound. Listen to this, okay? So you hear that? You don't hear that, that hammering action. Okay, so it's just kind of like the motor going. And here we go. Let's throw it into the Ryobi one and see how those do. But again, I think that both are pretty much the same. Well, here, ready? One-handed, like I said, my favorite thing. All right, so here is the Ryobi. And that does have a little bit of a harder time driving it in. So the DeWalt ones, I will say, so overall there, what do we got here? Ryobi, laugh, thumbs down. Have you ever tried it? Quizmon, have you ever actually tried Ryobi? That's my question there. So impact drills also have the same hammering action. Okay, yes, impact. I didn't call it a hammer drill. I called it an impact driver. I just said it has that hammering action, that very light. That's the best way I could describe it to everyone on here. It's not a hammer. A hammer drill has a handle on it. I actually don't have one, but like you hold here and it's got a handle on the side, and that really has that hammering action. But there are different things. So again, Quizmon probably, he's laughing over there, but probably never use Ryobi. Again, my problem with people hating on tools like Ryobi is that I feel like they've never actually used them, and they hear other people say Ryobi is bad, but those people have never had it either. And I generally feel like people have not actually given it a try. But if you are looking, especially if you're looking to get into woodworking, and you aren't looking for like a high cost option, Ryobi is going to be less expensive, and it is most likely going to work totally fine for your needs. If you are a full-time woodworker and you're getting into it, you obviously probably aren't even watching this overall, but you know, DeWalt tools can last a little bit longer. They can be a little bit stronger, as I've showed you on this test. So when it comes to these hand power tools, it really depends on your budget and how much you're going to use it for. So the one other thing I want to talk about, DeWalt versus Ryobi. I want to show you one more thing. I'm going to grab the camera and turn it over here because, again, as I said, there's a difference between these. It's not that much. There's not as much of a difference between these drill and driver and the power behind those. So what I want to show you now is over here, my setup with the bigger tools, right? Okay, so over here, I got some bigger tools. This is DeWalt and Ryobi, but not in a drill driver function, okay? So I have a DeWalt table saw, a Ryobi miter saw, a DeWalt scroll saw, and back there I mentioned I have a DeWalt router attached to my router table from Craig. So I can confidently say I use a DeWalt table saw. This is a 12-inch table saw. It is mobile, it has like a stand built in and a rolling stand built into it. Previously, I had the Ryobi table saw. I started with that. Again, barrier to entry is the cost, okay? The Ryobi table saw was only a couple of $100. This DeWalt table saw is like $600, but it is so much better. Like, I can't explain to you how much better this DeWalt one is than the Ryobi. It has a bigger, and this is like their standard, like, not bottom of the line, not like I don't mean like bottom line bad tool, like, but this is just like a standard job site saw. This is not a crazy table saw, and it is so much better both in functionality and performance than the Ryobi. I think it has a better, like, just overall everything is better, right? Okay, it's got a bigger surface. It's way easier it's got this cool scroll wheel here that adjusts the exact dimensions for the width that you want to cut. It has a bigger surface, a smoother surface. It's got an easier wheel here. It runs better. And like I said, this is very easy here. You lift this up. Oh, gotta get on there. You lift this up, drop the legs, pop these legs up, and this thing rolls away. So I'd linked this below too. You can see that it is more expensive. They are very often $100 off on that DeWalt table saw. But if you're looking to upgrade your table saw, I highly recommend this one because it's kind of like, if you go from, Ryobi's like the bottom of the line on the table saw. If you take this DeWalt, if you go like up levels, it becomes very, very expensive. To me, if you are someone that does some fairly regular woodworking and you want a good table saw, this DeWalt one is the way to go. Let's see, I got some more comments there. Gotta go Milwaukee. Everybody's their brand, not fair to comparison to DeWalt. Well, that's not true. I mean, you can compare brands to brands. I'm not saying that, I'm not comparing a quarter pounder to a double cheeseburger from McDonald's. It's comparing a double cheeseburger to a double cheeseburger to Burger King. So you can compare brands, I'd say. I'd say it's good enough for now, but then heavy duty, everyday doubt. Yeah, so I mean, is that Reese? Reese Yap? Hey, I know the name Reese because I'm a Carolina Panthers fan, unfortunately, and we used to have a kicker named Reese Lloyd, and he's not around anymore. So, but I agree. Like I said, I mentioned that, so I think that Ryobi is great. I think it works totally fine for those power tools. I don't think it has quite as long of a life, but I say that. But this drill that I was showing off right here, I've had this for like 10 years and it still works perfectly fine. No issues whatsoever. You can see it's worn. The rubber where my thumb goes, it's worn away. It wears down, but it still works, no problem. And the batteries, same batteries, still kicking. So, you know, in general, some of those tools will work better over time, but still works. My neighbor has a Ryobi gas lawnmower. Left it outside for years. I asked him if I could try to start it, threw some gas in it, started with no issues after all those years. Ryobi is reliable. I agree. Let me show you this miter saw and scroll saw here. Like I said, again, so this is a Ryobi miter saw. This is the big one. This is the 12-inch compound miter bevel, which means that if you unscrew here, it can turn right here, okay? Lock into a bunch of different degrees, but you can also unscrew it right here, and you can tilt it to get a side bevel as well. This is a great miter saw. No issues whatsoever with the Ryobi miter saw. It's perfect. It's very powerful. It's got a good base and it's at a really good price range. And I totally recommend that Ryobi miter saw to anybody. I used to have a Cobalt miter saw that was like really small, the baseline from Lowe's. It was fine, not very powerful. I upgraded to Ryobi because I decided I wanted the biggest blade. Here's things to keep in mind with that. The biggest blade, compound, miter, and bevel, and a big surface. And the best cost option I could find was that Ryobi one. And then here is my DeWalt scroll saw. I don't use this a ton, but the surface on this, the work surface on this, is huge. It's wider than my body, and I think that is really important, and it works really well, and it's very, cuts through. I mean, obviously blades are important on that kind of thing, but the DeWalt scroll saw doesn't jump, doesn't move. The Ryobi scroll saw has a tendency to jump. This one, very smooth, very solid, heavy base, and works really well. But, and then like you said, outdoor tools, I actually use Ryobi outdoor tools as well. I have the blower by itself. I have the battery powered lawnmower, which works excellent. And I have the Ryobi expanded system for all of the, for all of my like weeder and edger and all tiller and all those tools on there. I really appreciate, I hope everybody's enjoying this. And if you feel like this has been helpful, I would love some support with these super thanks things. This is what I trying to do this content creation is how I am able to feed my family. So I appreciate any support, even a little, the smallest little thing that you can throw on there. If I've been of any help to you with your woodworking journey, but overall, my opinion on what is better, DeWalt or Ryobi, the overall opinion to me is get what you need. And if you are someone that doesn't use a ton, doesn't use wood tools, like doesn't do a ton of woodworking, doesn't use a ton of tools, I think on the hand power tools, you're safe to go with a Ryobi because it will last, it'll work, and the expense is not bad, right? I think if you use things a little bit more often, maybe you might want to be interested in the DeWalt, but I also think Ryobi is totally fine. When you're stepping up to these bigger tools, I think it's more important to, pay attention to what you're getting. I like that DeWalt table saw a lot better than I liked the Ryobi table saw. I like the DeWalt scroll saw a lot better than I liked the Ryobi scroll saw. But then the Ryobi miter saw, great, no issue whatsoever. I've never had a DeWalt miter saw, but I had a Cobalt, and I like the Ryobi one a lot better. So I think things to take into consideration are your finances and how often that you are going to use it. But anybody that tells you that Ryobi is bad is just not accurate. They're just spitting things just to sound cool. If you are if you're a do-it-yourselfer, if you're a homeowner, I think Ryobi is a perfectly good brand. They are limited to being only at Home Depot. So if you don't have a Home Depot near you, then that's going to be more difficult. Usually they're across the street, Lowe's and Home Depot. But DeWalt is a little bit more versatile in that sense, in that you can get it at both stores. You can get it at those other stores that we don't have around here, like Menards and Acme and those, I'm not sure all the other ones. But you can get those tools in more places. So that's another thing to take into consideration. But I think there's nothing wrong with the Ryobi One Plus line of tools, and DeWalt is perfectly fine as well. So anyway, I'm gonna end this here, but I really appreciate all the support. And if you have any specific questions, please comment on this video and let me know what your comments are, and I'd love to address those in my next live. So thank you all for being here and for interacting, and I really, really appreciate it. Go do some good woodworking and share it with me. And if you want, check out my Instagram. In about 5 minutes, I'm going to be doing some. My Instagram is Charleston Crafted Builds, and this YouTube channel is Charleston Crafted. My Instagram is Charleston Crafted Builds, BUILDS on the end of it. And there I show all of my like woodworking plans, all the furniture that I build, and also all of my home renovation stuff. So one thing I've been working on all year long is my kitchen renovation. I've gutted my entire kitchen all by myself, from tearing out the peninsula to building my own island, building new cabinets, creating a new wall. And then I got one little section left, and I'm gonna start very briefly on that today. I'm gonna start sharing some stories today about what I'm doing to bump out some cabinets around my refrigerator so that I have like a counter depth cabinetry, or fridge depth, I guess, not counter depth, fridge depth. And I'm gonna show you what the first step. If you go to my Instagram, check out my stories in a few minutes. I'm gonna be sharing the process of removing crown molding and what you need to do to remove crown molding. And so if that's a home renovation project that you're looking to do, I'm going to be sharing how to do that here on my Instagram, Charleston Crafted Builds, in just a few minutes. So I appreciate you. Take care. Have a great day.